Hi, I'm Jan Doyle. Welcome to Wyse Talk. I am so happy to have today's guest with me. I know him personally, and he's an outstanding photographer. I can't wait till you see his work. I'd like you to welcome Robert Thomas to the show. I'm so happy to have you here, Bob.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here as well.
Your work is simply outstanding, and I'd like to get right into it right away, and start with this image that I have here. Now, you're dressed in red, which is photography red, and all photographers need it. But where is this image taken?
This was taken during a photo tour where 10 of us went to Iceland. And this is on the beach on the southern shore of Iceland. We traveled there at the end of February, the beginning of March, on a black lava sand beach.
Now that's interesting, black lava sand. You don't see that around Connecticut.
No, you don't.
You just don't.
But it was very windy, not very cold, relatively speaking, but wind chill was certainly below zero. It was about 26 degrees, and the wind was probably 10 to 15 or at times 20 miles an hour almost all the time. You can see that from the waves in the background.
You're a real photographer, and I knew that the minute I saw the tripod, because I fight tripods left and right, but when I saw the tripod, I knew you were a real photographer. But this is an incredible image, but I know you were in Iceland, but we have this wonderful image that you took there.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, we, as I said, we traveled in February and March, and in the winter months, you're able to get into the glaciers and into some of the ice caves. So this was actually in one of the ice caves, and this is looking out back from where we came, and you can see possibly some of the clouds. I call it storm view because it was generally cloudy, dark sky in many cases.
Now it looks almost mystical and magical. Is this blue, is that a Photoshop addition, or is that what the color was?
The glacial ice, and in fact glacial lakes, have this bluish green color. It's in part with the ice. Over the years, and many years, it forces the air out, it's more dense, and you have this, and the sediment also gives this this bluish green color.
Oh, it's beautiful. It looks mystical. So I'm interested in seeing, you have another image where
Yes.
we have, this is a wonderful way to see perspective over here with this. Who is this person right here?
Well, that is the person who led the tour, a person by the name of Nevada Weir.
Now, I have to tell you, when I heard that she was your tour guide, I was extremely jealous because she's phenomenal. She's an outstanding tour guide, extremely well known.
Yes, she does tours for National Geographic. She also runs her own tour company, as well as Santa Fe workshops. She lives in Santa Fe, but I don't think she actually stays in Santa Fe very much, because she's all over the world.
And look what the world has to offer.
Well,
that's one reason why I like photography. I think it not forces you, but it assists you in getting out and photographing your world and seeing what it's all about. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, I'm just saying that this gives an idea of the perspective. In the other image, you might get a feel it's smaller than it is, but here, it's the whole cave goes back, and it goes on for quite a distance.
Now, is Iceland something that you'd like to revisit, or was once enough?
No, there's actually two seasons to Iceland. There's the winter and the summer months, and it's quite different between those two seasons. You still see a bit of snow on the peaks of the mountains in the summer, but in some ways, it looks a lot like Death Valley with the Badlands and the colors in the stone. I haven't gone in the summer. The only reason that I'm hesitating is that there are a lot of tourists that go in the summer. Not as many enjoy the wind and cold in the winter.
No, I would say that's accurate. But are you dying to photograph the puffins?
Well, yes.
Because I'm dying to photograph the
Well,
puffins.
maybe we can go together.
I would love that. I am dying to photograph the puffins. Now, here's another image that you have, and this is in Iceland also.
Yes, these are the Icelandic horses. A lot of people who see them here call them ponies. You don't say that to somebody in Iceland. They are horses. They're a lot smaller in stature, and they have a very heavy coat, sort of a combination of almost like a Clydesdale and a pony.
Yes.
And this I call windblown. You might be able to see the snow is almost horizontal here. And they were just outside. The day before, we visited the ice cave, and you see the snow that was in the ice cave. And we actually saw these horses on the roadside, stopped the bus, got out and walked over to photograph. They're very friendly.
Now that's the advantage of a photo tour versus another tour. The photo tours stop for photos. Right. And other tours, you just kind of go by and sort of wave to them in the distance. So it's hard. It's hard. But did you crop this in camera or did you crop it at Photoshop?
At Photoshop.
Oh, it's just wonderful. But then you have another view of the horse, and you really get the feeling of the wind blowing.
Yes.
This is phenomenal.
Yeah, the snow is crusted on the horse here, and you can see the thick coat and the wind just completely blowing the mane across. So it's one of my favorite images to just show how hardy these animals are.
Yes, yes. It's a wonderful, wonderful image. Now, so Iceland, would you rank Iceland one of your, because I know you're a world traveler, would you rank it as one of your top trips, or are there other trips that you've enjoyed more?
I would rank it near the top.
Wow. Now, when we were talking earlier in our pre-interview, you also went to a place that a lot of people are dying to go to. In fact, I have some friends going there in the next week. You went to Cuba.
Yes.
Tell me about this particular image.
Well, this was also part of a photo tour. About 10 photographers traveled to Cuba, and we went through various locations. And this was a fishing village. And I was actually walking along the shore, and somebody called me up, and I saw these two children. And one of the things they told us, if we were to photograph people, is that you're really not going to pay people for the photographs. But the children, many of them don't have all the school supplies. So bring along a supply of pens and pencils and crayons. If you take one's picture, give them a pen, and you might see here.
I'm noticing right here is a pen, and over here, is this a crayon?
This is, well, no, that's just a short. I had not given him the pen, and once I gave him the pen, then we have, someone grabbed me from behind. I thought I had done something wrong.
Right, you never know, especially photographing children.
And I was down low, so I'm down almost on my knees, and I thought something terrible was going to happen. Turned around, I saw this big fella, and I had a hat on. He took the hat off, and he put around my neck some shell necklaces. I could put these on. These are the necklaces that he gave me.
The camera's picking them up. Those are the necklaces.
And he put them around my neck, put the hat back on.
Wow.
And then gave me this big bear hug, and I think we have that as another picture.
Another image, yes, you're right. I'm still looking at the necklace, and I know we've already discussed this, but I'm thinking your wife would love them for Christmas.
Well, they're quite
the
fine
thing.
Detailed, yeah.
So here is the picture of the guy who gave you the...
And that was the father of the two children, and he just appreciated the fact that I had taken a picture and taken the time to give them a little something for that.
Yes.
All the people were very kind and friendly and very outgoing.
And do you find that unusual when you travel, or that the locals are outgoing, or do you find them more standoffish?
Well, it depends on where you go. But certainly I was not expecting the people to be as friendly and open and sharing. in Cuba as they were.
Was this just a regular neighborhood, or was it a fair, or?
It was a very small fishing village of 5 small, I wouldn't call them huts, but homes. And they were working, you can see there's a boat behind me,
Oh, yes.
a dog here. They were working on their nets, and they were probably 50 to 100 feet from the shore, and they'd take their boats in. The boats weren't much bigger than large rowboats, and that's how they did their fishing.
Wow, it's a wonderful image. Now, I happen to say I love the story you told about this image
yes.
with the bubbles.
Well, one of the other things that we were told would be good to do, besides bringing pens and pencils and crayons, is have something that would engage the people. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about this. We got into this little village, and one of the women one of the photographers, brought some bubbles, you know, the little blow bubbles.
Yes, yes.
And she brought those out, and there were 2 children here, but this young girl really got into the thing with the bubbles, and we were probably there for a half an hour, and then we gave her the rest of the bubbles, and she
loved it.
She loved
yes,
it. Yeah.
And it's you can get them for $1, you know, at the dollar store, and they're just a lot of fun. And actually, it's probably a good idea to carry it when you're even in the States and for engaging children.
Right.
You might never want to leave home without bubbles. I'm just saying.
Yes.
So this is an interesting
Oh,
picture.
yes. Well, I'm somewhat of a coffee buff. We were at a plantation, a coconut plantation, mm-hmm. and we got to tour through the area. We actually had 2 Cuban professional photographers with us, so that really allowed us to get into some locations where other tours might not be able to. So we got up to this plantation, and this actually is the kitchen. I don't know how this doesn't burn, but there must be a cement or some stone finish here. And this is a bottle of coffee with some sugar in it, and I'm having a cup of coffee.
How was the coffee?
It was very good, but a little sweet.
Sweet. I was expecting you to say strong, a little strong.
It was. I like strong coffee, and it was a very hearty coffee.
That's wonderful to taste the flavors of where you are. That's what, especially if you're a coffee person. So Cuba when did you go to Cuba?
Just March a year ago, so a little over a year.
And what was the photo tour? What was the name of the photo tour?
Well, this was a photo tour through Santa Fe workshops.
Yes, they're very.
And they're continuing to do photo tours in Cuba. Right now.
Yeah, people who are looking for photo tours, Santa Fe offers a Maine Photographic, but there's so many companies out there. All people have to do is Google them. Now, this one is taken close to home.
Yes, this is Stony Creek, and I actually I was not going to take a picture that evening, and my wife had been out to Stony Creek the evening before, and said, "You've got to come out and photograph the sunsets. They're amazing." And this was in November. And I said, "Well, there's too many clouds in the sky." She said, "Oh, come on, you've got to go out." So I went out, and I took, believe it or not, from the sun up a bit in the sky all the way down till this is near the end of the sun going down, 300 photographs. This is one of them.
You don't strike me as something we take.
Well,
wow.
I took all through, going all along the shoreline, and what struck me was how vibrant the colors were, especially the reds and the yellows. And I had never, I thought the sky was on fire.
Yes. And I asked you, I was surprised when we talked that you went in the winter, and what was your, because everyone I know goes in the spring, summer, fall, and what was your reasoning for winter sunsets?
Well, I actually had to do a little research on that, because I've noticed this. I've looked through many images that I have, and it seems the winter sunrises and sunsets are more vibrant and brighter in the reds and the yellows. And actually, it deals with a little bit of physics here. The blue spectrum is a shorter wavelength, and the reds and the yellows are longer wavelengths. And during the sunset, the light has to travel through a greater distance, more atmosphere, and the blue shorter wavelengths actually get deflected more, and the reds and the yellows come out, and that's even greater in the colder months.
I'm trying, when we spoke about it before, I made a mental note to go out and do some sunset shots, and I haven't done it. So I'm hoping to make another mental note. Maybe I'll put a sticky in my head and go do that.
This morning would have been tough.
Well,
at 19 degrees and 20 mile-an-hour winds.
I found it tough just going outside during the day. Beautiful, beautiful image. Now, to contrast that, I wanted to have, was this the same setting?
The same setting. This was, you could see the sun hasn't come all the way down. It's behind the clouds. And so it's a more subtle overall as far as the colors. But I wanted to get a little bit of the shoreline and the reflection in the window. Yeah, you can see
you can see the reflection right here. That's lovely, and I like it that you have something in your foreground, and that kind of places everything, gives you a visual point of reference. Really, really enjoy this, and you see the beginning of the sunset.
Right.
Now, I particularly liked this one because I had attended a workshop, and I love your master of your foregrounds. I've seen this photographed many, many times. I photographed this. This is in Guilford.
Yeah, the Grass Island, I believe it's called.
But I never have seen it with this as a focal point and leading you into the picture. What made you do that?
Well, when I go to photograph, I try to walk around and look at different angles of view and different perspective. I bought a book a few years ago called Learning to See Creatively. And it shows the typical photograph, and then if you take a little time going into a different position or location, how you might get a different overall perspective or photograph. So I walked down the boat ramp, and then notice this lining up with the sun, still getting the Grass Island hut, and turned out to be an interesting photograph.
So you don't get out and start shooting like a bullet, like a automatic gun right away. You take your time and you think about do you pre-visualize the image?
I try to, but I look through the area and then look at a location that I might want to go to set up an image.
One thing that I really enjoy is going for rides, looking for possible places to photograph.
Especially along the shore.
Yeah, I just enjoy that. It keeps me out of trouble, I might add, if things could do that. Now, did you say this was your house?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, yes.
But I was looking for a garden here in Connecticut to go and photograph. And my wife had seen this Hollister House garden in Washington, Connecticut. And we went up there actually in July. And this is a garden that a gentleman who owned an antique shop in Manhattan sold it 40 years ago, moved to this home, and then built what is really classified as an English garden. And we had the opportunity to actually live in England for 3 years, so I wanted to see this, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Now, does he still live there?
He does.
Oh, he does
so
still
I met him, and I was chatting with him. He told me, I think, a bit of a tale. He said he has one person, part-time, who tends the garden. I don't believe that. Looking at the gardens, the flowers are absolutely magnificent. Every bloom is at its peak. Now, we may have gone on a perfect day, but I doubt that. So he makes you think there's not much work, but there is an enormous amount of work to maintain.
Oh, there is. I have trouble with a couple of tomato plants. Really.
So I would recommend people, if they want to see a beautiful English garden, to go to the Hollister House garden. And
is there a fee?
there is a recommended donation of $5.
Oh, that's incredibly cheap.
So
That's incredible.
And when we went there in July, all the lilies were out, and as I say, the blooms were perfect. They were just open. There's water, a small waterfall, and ponds, and
Wow. Wow,
So-
it's truly a gentleman's garden. Now, I want to also talk about, I understand, now, I was amazed when I saw you a few months ago. Now, I've always loved your photography. I've always admired it. But then you sort of moved on and you're doing something else. You're doing photography on wood. Can you explain this? I'm just going to set this up.
Well, I
Move this on
took
here.
a class at Creative Arts Workshops in New Haven. And there was a gentleman there by the name of Ken Lovell who has been giving a class called experimental photography or experimental printing. And there they have these wide format printers, and you can experiment. Yeah, I experimented with fabrics and silk and cotton, metals. You have different solutions that you put on these. And then I started wood, and I really liked the look that you can get. And one of the things that people say about photography is that once you have an image, you can make hundreds of the same image, just keep printing it. The difference here is that each piece of wood is different. Each piece of wood has a different grain. So it may be the same image that you're printing. This was when my wife and I were in Nova Scotia in October of this year. And I find that black and white transfers better to the woods. And I just had a show where most of the work was all done with wood. And I found it different. I like to try different methods, but I'm going to continue to work more with the wood.
Now, where do you get the wood from the instructor, or do you purchase the
No,
wood?
I purchased it. This I got from artists and craftsmen in New Haven. It's a piece. It's actually plywood, believe it or not. There's a
Wow,
And there's
I don't believe
veneer
you.
on the front and back. It's made by a company called Midwest Products. And I'm fortunate to have a large carriage printer as well. And
I've
I'm able
seen it.
to,
I have printer jealousy. I just want you to know, just so you know.
but it allows you to move the print head back away from whatever you're printing on, because this is relatively thick, not terribly, about 32nd
But it's more than
inch.
paper.
Right, and so you can move it back and then print on this. So I've printed probably 20 or 30 images. I find a lot of the southwestern images are quite good. Desert scenes.
I'm going to need to interrupt. I understand you exhibit at different galleries. What galleries are you at?
Well, my wife and I both exhibit at the Spectrum Gallery in Centerbrook, which is right near Essex, and we've been there for about 3 or 4 years now.
And you have a current show?
We have a current show. As you can imagine, this time of year, it's sort of a winter theme. And I have 4 photographs there from Canada, around Lake Louise and Moraine Lake.
Now, I also know that you've written a book on experimental printing.
Well, I'm an engineer, and I'm used to writing lab reports and things like that, and I've recently retired, so I'm not writing as many reports.
And you miss it.
I miss it.
You miss it.
So I
Let your boss know.
I decided while I was taking the class to take notes, take photographs, and because this way I could remember the things that worked and maybe not do the things that didn't work over again. And so some of this is printing on fabrics. Here's printing on metal. A lot of my mistakes are well documented.
Well, you know what? That's what I liked when I read this book. I looked through the book before. The mistakes are as important as the success. Because, we learn most from our mistakes. Or I know I do. I do.
Well, this allows me to go back, and if I want to try metal again, here I had several mistakes, I'd probably get a much better result.
Yes, yes.
But once,
and you're interested in maybe teaching this.
Yeah, I would like to do that. Ken has been teaching this, and there's a possibility I could help him out, or I might do a course at Creative Arts. You need a place that has the equipment, and it's nice that Creative Arts Workshop in New Haven has those printers available for the students.
Well, if you teach the course or you assist the teacher, I'm going to try to sign up, and don't yell at me when I make mistakes. That's all I ask.
That's what you learn from.
Now, if people wanted to contact you, Bob, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, they could contact me through, I have a very cryptic email. It's robertdthomas@comcast.net.
robertdthomas@comcast.net. Do you have a website?
I have a website for my photographs, and that is rdthomas.smugmug.com.
Oh, that's cute. Say that again, please.
rdthomas.smugmug.com. Smugmug is a hosting site that is used by a lot of photographers, and it allows you to display your work. It also has the ability to sell your work
Great.
as well.
And we're almost out of time. So if you'd like to contact him, he just gave you the information. If you didn't have a chance to write it down, you can always contact me at jmdteach@comcast.net. Or if you can't remember that, BCTV, you can get in contact with BCTV, and they'll contact me, and I'll contact Bob. Thank you so much for coming. I'd love to have you back on again.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate the opportunity to show some of my work.
Loved it, loved it.